gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of That's What That Was presents the What Now show. Today I'm joined by Jenna Fabian. If you see her on the streets, she better not be mean. She is a WMC World Muay Thai champion. She is currently a lightweight in in the PFL. It's a pleasure to have you, Jenna. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So, of course, let's get started with the whole COVID situation, right? I'm
Yeah.
fairly sure with when it comes to training and setting up fights and getting the contract done, it's a huge mess at the moment. So, how have you been dealing with all of it? How have you gone back to normal with the situation?
In terms of fighting or
In
the
terms of
like with PFL.
yeah, with PFL.
Yeah. So I was luckily signed to. I've got a 2-year contract with them. And then when the world got put on notice and shut down, so to speak, with coronavirus, um, we were put on hold. Our promotion kind of just told us to stand by at the time, and they were kind of in the background, I guess, organizing and deciding amongst networks and all the big players that are involved in the PFL production as to what to do. So 5 weeks into quarantine that we were having here in New Zealand, we finally got an official word that they were going to postpone the competition this year and put it back to 2021. So that's how we were told. And they just with the style of the tournament, it being a tournament style, they couldn't, as well as like with the network with ESPN, they couldn't come up with a format that would allow them to be able to complete the tournament in time and the given dates that they had scheduled, and so when you're dealing with a big network like ESPN, it kind of really threw them as well. So unfortunately that left us, the fighters and everyone else involved, the whole production involved, unable to go forward this year. But the PFL were amazing and being able to support us fighters who were scheduled to fight, and be able to give us some compensation for due to the circumstances with not being able to travel and compete this year. So that was out of good faith, like really, really cool of them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense because I was wondering what's the scene like when it comes to setting up the fights, when you think you're going to be getting back into the ring and strapping on the gloves.
Yep, so we're all good to go. The PFL this year, 2021, so the season's all about to kick off, and the first round of fights have been announced. So I'll be fighting on the very first date that the PFL's back, which will be April 23rd.
Right.
So really excited for that, and been gearing up for that all 2020, leveling up and just in a way given a big blessing to be able to work on things and been given time to grow as a fighter and adapt, and I didn't waste any of that given time to expand my game and add tools. I'm very much looking forward to being back in there, and
we're looking forward to seeing you. So I'm gonna make sure I book the calendar to make sure I watch that fight. You have my support the entire way, and I'm sure the viewers are supporting you as well. So I think what I want to go attack next is training, right? Because you had 2020 to yourself, and as you said, you've been working on expanding your game. Of course, you're a kickboxing champion. You're very decorated in that field. Muay Thai champion. My apologies. So when you've been expanding your game, what's something you've been looking forward to the most? Is it your jiu-jitsu, your boxing? What have you been looking forward to most?
I've been spending a lot of time with a lot of my coaches, but in particular, spending a lot more time on my range and my boxing, and my hands. That's something I've never really had time or the focus to solely concentrate on. So last year I got an opportunity to be able to mix it up and
Yeah.
with our boxing team here at City Kickboxing and our coach Doug Viney in particular. So that was an amazing and very tough discipline to learn and be specific with. So that part of my game, my wrestling, all of it, we train all of it here at City Kickboxing, but I would say a lot of it would have just been ring smarts and ring control, cage and talking about ring and cage control, just becoming a smarter fighter and just knowing how to dictate people without even making contact so much. Of course, there's that side of it and the tools that we have and can utilize, but how to place people where I want them and how to control a space, control an area, control a fight, essentially. So I'd say that's where the biggest growth has been, and overall what I've improved on during that time.
Right. So, how when it comes to regularity with the gym, have you been able to get into the gym regularly because of the whole lockdowns and quarantine situations that have been imposed throughout the year?
Yeah, so here in New Zealand, we had two lockdowns.
Right.
The first one, when it all broke out, across the world, we went into lockdown for, I think, close to, like 6-7 weeks, which was a long time, for people to stay at home and be kept indoors and without any kind of idea as to how it was going to go or how things were going to operate after that. So we were just we were forced to all just stay at home and kind of train ourselves, and our coaches were telling us to keep keep as ready as possible to make do with what we had, wherever we were, and to still maintain some sort of base. We came out of level 4 being the highest degree of isolation. And when we started to come out of those levels and we came into level 2 here in New Zealand, we were able to have 10 at a time in a space. So that's when our gym, City Kickboxing, was able to orchestrate groups to be able to train together. And so that's what we did as the lockdowns lifted, the levels lifted. And we were able to train together in small groups until we were able to be at a full lockdown and the gym was able to come together like normal. But that took a couple of weeks. And then we were up and running, and we thought that New Zealand had it under control and we were back to full operations across the country. And then we had a little outbreak and scare, particularly in Auckland City, where we're based, where I'm from, the main city. And so we went into, I think it was 2 to 3 week lockdown here. And so same thing, went to high alert. And what we were able to do, so a few of the MMA boys had big fights coming up, boys in the UFC, such as Israel,
Yeah.
Shane, Kai, and Brad all were fighting on the same card, and then boom, this lockdown hit us. So what
Yeah.
we had to do, what our head coach Eugene Berryman was able to organize, was he moved everyone into the gym, all the training partners, all the coaches, and obviously the boys fighting, to just live in the gym. They all had to bring their gear and whatever else they needed, bedding, you name it, by 12 p.m. the next day, because that's when the lockdown was being enforced. And so they did that. And then, so what one of our other coaches did, who's the he's the other major player and owner of City Kickboxing, Doug Viney. He orchestrated his own camp amongst his boxing guys up north in Auckland, and had his own mini camp out there where he stays. So I was really fortunate to be a part of that, and to continue to train and obviously get better through that time. So it's just how it worked out. And then we were able to slowly come back to the gym all together and be able to run as normal. And so yeah, that's kind of how it all happened on our end with all the lockdown.
Were you also living in the gym there at with Doug's camp up north, or were you moving from home to camp?
I was up at Doug's camp
Okay.
up north. Yeah.
So what was that whole process like? Living in the gym, getting ready with everything there, rather than staying at home and getting in your own comfort zone.
It was awesome. It was kind of what it was. We didn't know what to expect at first, but it was a bunch of our team, and it was like a real old school camp style, is what it reminded me of. It's like when you take your fighters away or your team away and you're isolated, and it's just you guys, and it's just eat, sleep, train, repeat, eat, sleep, train, repeat. And it had that real old school like feel about it, and where things were really simple and things were really tough. Like training was really tough and really regimented, and but it was just, yeah, like we had nothing else to worry about really, except to show up and be ready on time for when practice would be early morning, and then mid-afternoon, and then lunchtime, and then mid-afternoon. Some days would have 3 days, but yeah, it was such an experience. It was so cool, and it like brought so many of us closer together too, in a different way, because we were kind of like eat, sleep, train together, and get to know each other like at another level as well, So that was a really awesome experience, and if anything, it really helped me personally. Like it really did. That time really lit like a fire in me again. That with all the uncertainty that had been going on with fighting, not fighting, it just really like brought it back to why I started fighting and loved this sport and loved this lifestyle. So for that experience, I was really it was an amazing experience for me.
Right. So let's move on to.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
So moving on to, let's say, I want to know a little bit more about your history with MMA, right? So how'd you get interested in the sport in the first place and decide that I want to try this out, and then move on to doing it full time and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so my base is Muay Thai, in which I started in Thailand, in the Mecca of Muay Thai. And at the time, the reason I got into MMA was because I wasn't getting Muay Thai fights at that point of time. A few fights had pulled out of me, and I was struggling. Yeah, I was training and preparing for these fights that weren't going through. And then a friend of mine had offered me an MMA fight. And I was just so desperate at the time for money and to go out there and perform and to fight that I accepted it on 6 weeks notice, but not having trained ground or any kind of like wrestling or anything like that, or having that experience. I basically did this like 6 week basic course on how to survive your first MMA fight. So that's how it happened. And though I was confident in my striking and a strong striker at that point in time, but it was more out of desperation, and it was more like, oh well, I'm a fighter, so I'm just gonna fight. And it was the hardest 6 weeks. I remember crying a few times after training with my head in my hands, like, what did I commit to? What am I doing? Obviously being put in like positions I'd never been put in before, but no, I remember having a great team at that time, and like friends and teammates who kind of really helped me through that camp. And it's funny, as much like mental and emotional like difficulties I had at that point in time, not once did I ever think I'm not fighting. I was like, I'm signed up and I'm all in, and look, whatever happens happens. It kind of got to that point because it was just like the unknown. And then of course the smaller gloves, which wasn't actually my concern so much, wearing 4-ounce gloves and potentially being hit. It was just where the fight would take place. And so that's how it initially started. And then I remember that camp, and then once I had that fight, afterwards I was like, I just remember not ever wanting to feel vulnerable in any kind of position again. And it just forced me to want to know the ground and know how to manage my body and to be more well versed in those situations and positions, like against a cage or against a wall, or wrestling, or taking someone down, or knowing how to scramble to get up to your feet, or knowing how to get out of a submission or a position on the ground flat on your back. That was what made me convert to MMA and want to pursue it. Because even the striking in MMA is different, and that's something I learned at that point in time. You can't just come in firing off combos like you would, say, in a kickboxing or Muay Thai fight. You have to, your range is different, your weapons of choice and the timing of those weapons has to be calculated and very accurate. Otherwise you could find yourself in positions that you may not be wanting to be in, or your whole game could be thrown off potentially. So yeah.
I had the chance to watch a few of your fights leading up to this podcast in itself, and I noticed that when it came to your striking, you were very creative, and you weren't using the same move over and over again. You came at your opponent from multiple different angles, especially your last MMA fight, which was a victory, wherein I think you knocked her down with that clean punch. You knocked her down and you dazed her entirely. And I wanted to run back to, I think, your time in Muay Thai, where you secured the WMC championship. So I was wondering if you could walk us through the whole lead up to that fight, getting the title around your waist and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so at that point when I fought for that WMC world title, I, for that last maybe couple of years prior to that, I kind of, I hadn't focused on Muay Thai at all. If anything, I felt like I had to kind of kiss it goodbye, because I just wasn't getting the opportunities that MMA was kind of starting to deliver, and the doors that were opening up for MMA. So my focus became more geared towards MMA for sure. And then I got an opportunity over in America, and to be at a gym over there, CSA gym. And I got there and had a meeting with the coach the first or second day I arrived, and he said, look, like, I can get you an opportunity if you work hard and prove yourself, to have a few more Muay Thai fights, and then we focus it back in on MMA. He goes, I want you to still keep training and focusing on MMA, but before we dip our hands into that, like, I want you to have a few more fights in Muay Thai where you started, just to get acclimated, get comfortable again in a new environment, new training system and whatnot. And that was one of the opportunities that came about a couple of years in to being over in California in the States. So yeah, that was that. And the opponent I fought was Charmaine Tweet. She's fought a lot of the top women all over the world, Ronda Rousey, everyone, Cyborg, and everyone, all the ladies in that, like, all the a lot of the top pioneer women that came from like Strikeforce and the early UFC days, and also in Invicta. So she was well versed and well experienced. Her base being kickboxing as well. And yeah, so we were scheduled to fight, I think it was in December of 2016. And training camp was all good. I was, preparing, cutting weight, whatnot. And then the hour before we went to weigh in, I found out that we got told that she is not fit to fight and she won't be fighting because she contracted a cold or a flu, and she won't be able. She didn't make weight and she was too ill to weigh in and obviously to compete. So that was an hour before the weigh-in. So I still weighed in just to show that, I'd made the weight and I was prepared and ready to go ahead. But unfortunately at that time, she wasn't. And she flew all the way in from Canada. So it was unfortunate, And then thankfully, we were able to reschedule that fight for February 2017. So, just over a couple months later. And then, yeah, we eventually, she weighed in this time. We both made weights. And yeah, I think it was the second or third round that I beat her by KO or TKO. Yeah, I initially dropped her with a head kick, and then was able to. She dropped and was unable to compete, and the ref stopped it. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's interesting how you were able to reschedule the fight, because I don't think when it came to, I was trying to read about that fight, and I don't think I caught that part about the rescheduling. So that's pretty interesting. And I want to move forward, change gears a little bit, and rather than just MMA, are there any other sports or any other things you're interested in? I mean, I see the Nets jersey, so I'm also a fan of the Nets.
Yeah. I'm a fan. I'm a Kevin Durant fan, number 7. So
what do you think about his return this year?
Sorry?
What do you think about his return this year?
yeah, I was excited for him, and I think he's an amazing player, and I wanted to see him do his thing. I mean, yeah, it was a bit below par, but but I was excited to see him back.
Yeah.
And let's see what he does this season.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
going to.
A very interesting season coming up because as soon as you came on the show, I'm like, fellow Nets fan. I was very excited.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, since like the Bulls days where my parents brought me up on, and like I was so little, but like these days I don't really have a team so much. I'm a big fan of players, but yeah, I'm bandwagon. I'd say now I'm very I'm season by season, but no, I do enjoy a few of the players and follow them.
Yeah. So now let's look at like the ideal, fighting season for you this year, right? So are you how many fights, or what does the plan look like? The ideal scenario look for you throughout the year? Of course, you
Yeah,
have
so
so yeah.
yeah, so me and my team are hoping that I will be able to schedule a fight early this year, either February or early March, either boxing or kickboxing here in New Zealand. So if that works out and we're able to confirm on a show here, I'll do that. Then all gearing up towards April 23rd. My first fight in the PFL, the first round of fights for the tournament. And then 9 weeks later, I'll be back over there competing in the second round. And then I'll be back over there again 9 weeks after that. So I'll be quite active, and I'll have at least 3 fights. And going all the way to the finals, I'll be having 4, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's
as far as we know, because the PFL changed, restructured the competitors and the tournament a bit from last year. So they're releasing that sort of news as we go along. And they will be doing a full release soon. But as far as I know, I've got 3 fights locked in, all roughly 2 months apart from each other, kicking off from April 23rd.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope that does work out for you. And wrapping it up, I'll leave the last few minutes off to you. Any last words for the Jenna Fabian fans out there? Anything else you'd like to say? All you.
Just thank you to everyone who supports me and follows my journey. Appreciate it. And shout out to my gym man and my teammates. They're the ones in the trenches with me, and me with them day in, day out. So I really do come from the best gym in the world, and it's not just an award that we won and this like all of a sudden found fame. It's that for a reason, for our figureheads and our coaches that lead us, and just what they've been able to produce and do for all of us is just, I'm so proud to be from that. And of course my friends and family that I love so much, and that just support me. So thank you guys.
Well, thank you for joining in, Jenna, and thank you to everyone watching for watching. Kat Jenna's fight coming up later this month. Best of luck to you again, Jenna. This was it.
Thank you.
Not a problem. This was it from us. Thank you, and that's what that was. We'll see you on the next one.